Today I'm going to be reading chapter 1 from Women Who Run with the Wolves. We're going to really start to delve deep now into the excavation of the wild woman archetype. And I've tried to take excerpts out of this chapter, but it doesn't do it justice. And there's just so much good stuff, good juice, good bones, which is partly what this chapter is about, the gathering of the bones. So let's find out exactly what I'm talking about. It's titled The Howl, Resurrection of the Wild Woman. And the story is La Loba, the wolf woman. So let me begin because we've got a lot to get through and there's some really good stuff. I must reveal to you that I am not one of the divine who march into the desert and return gravid with wisdom. I've travelled many cook fires and spread angel bait round every sleeping place. But more often than the getting of wisdom, I've gotten indelicate episodes of giardiasis, E. coli, and amoebic dysentery. Aye, such is the fate of a middle-class mystic with delicate intestines. Whatever wisdom or notion I aspired on my travels to odd places and unusual people, I learned to shelter. Over-intellectualization can obscure the patterns of the instinctual nature of woman. There's a great quote that I love by Susan Sontag that I discovered when I was at art school, and it's something I've always held on to. She says, interpretation is the revenge of the intellect on art. And I so agree with that. We're so intellectualized, so over-intellectualized everything that we do, especially when it comes to the creative arts. It's such a beautiful statement. So over-intellectualization can obscure the patterns of the instinctual nature of woman. To further our kinship relationship with the instinctual nature, it assists greatly if we understand stories as though we are inside them, rather than as though they are outside of us. We enter into a story through the door of inner hearing. The spoken story touches the auditory nerve, which runs across the floor of the skull into the brainstem, just below the pons. There, auditory impulses are relayed upward to consciousness, or else, it is said, to the soul, depending on the attitude with which one listens. Ancient dissectionists spoke of the auditory nerve being divided into 3 or more pathways deep in the brain. They surmised that the ear was meant, therefore, to hear at 3 different levels. One pathway was said to hear the mundane conversations of the world. A second pathway apprehended learning and art. And the third pathway existed so the soul might hear guidance and gain knowledge while here on earth. Listen then with soul hearing now, for that is the mission of story. Bone by bone, hair by hair, wild woman comes back. Through night dreams, through events half understood and half remembered, wild woman comes back. She comes back through story. I began my own migration across the United States in the 1960s, looking for a settling place that was dense with trees, fragrant with water, and populated by the creatures I loved: bear, fox, snake, eagle, wolf. The wolves were being systematically exterminated from the upper Great Lakes region. No matter where I went, the wolves were being hounded in one way or another. Although many spoke of them as menaces, I always felt safer when there were wolves in the woods. Out west and in the north in those times, you could camp and hear the mountains and forests sing, sing, sing at night. But even there, the age of scope rifles, jeep-mounted click lights, and arsenic treats caused an age of silence to creep over the land. Soon the Rockies were almost empty of wolves too. That is how I came to the Great Desert, which lies half in Mexico, half in the United States, and the further south I traveled, the more stories I heard about wolves. You see, it is told that there is a place in the desert where the spirit of woman and the spirit of wolves meet across time. I felt I was onto something when in the Texas borderlands I heard a story called Loba Girl, about a woman who was a wolf who was a woman. Next I found the ancient Aztec story of orphaned twins being breastfed by a she-wolf till the children were old enough to stand on their own. And finally, from the old Spanish land grant farmers and Pueblo people of the Southwest, I heard one-line reports about the bone people, the old ones who bring the dead back to life. They were said to restore both humans and animals. Then, on one of my own ethnographic expeditions, I met a bone woman and have never been quite the same since. Allow me to present a first-hand account and introduction. La Loba. There is an old woman who lives in a hidden place that everyone knows in their souls, but few have ever seen. As in the fairy tales of Eastern Europe, she seems to wait for lost or wandering people and seekers to come to her place. She is circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. She is both a crower and a cackler, generally having more animal sounds than human ones. I might say she lives among the rotten granite slopes in Tarahumara, Indian Territory, or that she is buried outside Phoenix near a well. Perhaps she will be seen traveling south to Monte Alban in a burnt-out car with the back window shot out. Or maybe she will be spotted standing by the highway near El Paso, or riding shotgun with truckers to Morelia, Mexico, or walking to market above Oaxaca with strangely formed boughs of firewood on her back. She calls herself by many names: La Huesera, bone woman, La Trapera, the gatherer, and La Loba, wolf woman. The sole work of La Loba is the collecting of bones. She collects and preserves especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. Her cave is filled with the bones of all manner of desert creatures, the deer, the rattlesnake, the crow. But her speciality is wolves. She creeps and crawls and sifts through montanas, mountains, and arroyos, dry riverbeds, looking for wolf bones. And when she has assembled an entire skeleton, when the last bone is in place, and the beautiful white sculpture of the creature is laid out before her, she sits by the fire and thinks about what song she will sing. And when she is sure, she stands over the criatura, raises her arms over it, and sings out. That is when the rib bones and leg bones of the wolf begin to flesh out, and the creature becomes furred. La Loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curls upward, shaggy and strong. And La Loba sings more, and the wolf creature begins to breathe. And still La Loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes. And as she sings, the wolf opens its eyes, leaps up, and runs away down the canyon. Somewhere in its running, whether by the speed of its running, or by splashing its way into a river, or by way of a ray of sunlight or moonlight, hitting it right in the side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free toward the horizon. So remember, if you wander the desert, and it is near sundown, and you are perhaps a little bit lost, and certainly tired, that you are lucky, for La Loba may take a liking to you and show you something of the soul. We all begin as a bundle of bones, lost somewhere in a desert, a dismantled skeleton that lies under the sand. It is our work to recover the parts, It is a painstaking process, best done when the shadows are just right, for it takes much looking. La Loba indicates what we are to look for, the indestructible life force, the bones. The work of La Loba can be thought of as representing un cuento milagro, a miracle story. It shows us what can go right for the soul. It is a resurrection story about the underworld connection to wild woman. It promises that if we will sing the song, we can call up the psychic remains of the wild soul and sing her into a vital shape again. La Loba sings over the bones she has gathered. To sing means to use the soul voice. It means to say on the breath the truth of one's power and one's need. To breathe soul over the thing that is ailing or in need of restoration. This is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for relationship with the wildish self overflows, then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. That is singing over the bones. We cannot make the mistake of attempting to elicit this great feeling of love from a lover, for this woman's labor of finding and singing the creation hymn is a solitary work, a work carried out in the desert of the psyche. It's something we all have to do if we crave that wild woman within, that resurrection, that reconnection to ourselves. It's a solitary work. And each time I read this story, I gain more and more from it. And it's something you cannot rush through. So I encourage you to read the story again and again if you can. And each time you will discover something more about yourself. I know I did. Let us consider La Loba herself. In the symbolic lexicon of the psyche, the symbol of the old woman is one of the most widespread archetypal personifications in the world. Others are the great mother and father, the divine child, the trickster, the sorceress, the sorcerer, the maiden and youth, the heroine warrior, and the fool. Yet a figure like La Loba can be considered vastly different in essence and effect, for she is symbolic of the feeder route to an entire instinctual system. In the Southwest, the archetype of the old woman can also be apprehended as Old Lakesab, the one who knows. Another word for that is omniscience, which is another word for God. Omniscience, the all-knower, the knower of all things, the creator. I first came to understand Lakesab, the one who knows, when I lived in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in New Mexico, under the heart of Lobo Peak. An old witch from Ranchos told me that Lakesab knew everything about woman. Lakesab had created woman from a wrinkle on the sole of her divine foot. This is why women are knowing creatures. They are made, in essence, of the skin of the soul, which feels everything. This idea that the skin of the foot is sentient had the ring of a truth. For an acculturated Quiché tribeswoman once told me that she'd worn her first pair of shoes when she was 20 years old and was still not used to walking, con los ojos vendados, with blindfolds on her feet. Can you imagine not wearing shoes until the age of 20? I can't even remember growing up without shoes. We all know what it is to wear shoes. And I recently watched a film on YouTube called The Earthing Movie. If you haven't seen it, please go look it up on YouTube. It's fantastic. It's something we all need to watch and remember what it is to be barefoot on the earth, connected to Mother Nature, to the earth, and grounded. And the movie follows quite a scientific approach which is what a lot of people in today's world fall on as their need for knowing more. Is it based in science? Well, it is. And grounding is such an essential part of our connection to the earth, of our energy field. And without it, we are disconnected from Mother Nature, from Gaia, disconnected from ourselves, lacking in true essence, true energy. And I know whenever I need a boost of energy or just to breathe, I take my shoes off and go walk on the grass outside, take deep lungfuls of air and feel revived. It's fantastic. So take your shoes off and go and connect with the earth. It's important. And even here, what Clarissa says is, the idea of being connected is so essential to our connection to the wild woman as well. The wild essence that inhabits nature has been called by many names and crisscrosses all nations down through the centuries. These are some of the old names for her. The Mother of Days is the Mother, Creator, God of all beings and doings, including the sky and earth. Mother Nyx, Durga, Kotalich, Hecate. By whatever name, the force personified by Laloba records the personal past and the ancient past, for she has survived generation after generation and is old beyond time. She is an archivist of feminine intention. She preserves female tradition. Her whiskers sense the future. She has the far-seeing milky eye of the old crone. She lives backward and forward in time simultaneously, correcting for one side by dancing with the other. The old one, the one who knows, is within us. God is within us. We are all God's sparks, particles of God. She thrives in the deepest soul psyche of woman, the ancient and vital wild self. Her home is that place in time where the spirit of woman and the spirit of wolf meet, the place where mind and instincts mingle, where a woman's deep life funds her mundane life. It is the point where the I and the thou kiss, the place where, in all spirit, women run with the wolves. The first time I read this, I didn't get it, but I started to see how it is connected to God and to our higher selves, to whatever you want to call it, the world beyond worlds. The old woman stands between the worlds of rationality and mythos. She is the knucklebone on which these two worlds turn. This land between the worlds is that inexplicable place we all recognize once we experience it. But its nuances slip away and shape change if one tries to pin them down, except when we use poetry, music, dance, or story. That is one beautiful way of reconnecting to our essence, is through the arts, through God, through creation. And this is what she speaks of, the world between worlds. There is speculation that the immune system of the body is rooted in this mysterious psychic land, and also the mystical, as well as all archetypal images and urges, including our God hunger, our yearning for the mysteries, and all the sacred instincts, as well as those which are mundane. Some would say the records of humankind, the root of light, the coil of dark, are also here. It is not a void, but rather the place of the mist beings where things are and also are not yet, where shadows have substance and substance is sheer. You could also call it the Akashic records, beyond the veil, the other side, where our guides live or our angels reside, the celestial part. I know a lot of people have issue with the word God and anything related to religion, but it's beyond religion. It's got nothing to do with religion. Religion is a man-made construct. This is the other side to me, the world, the source, the creator. And this is part of connecting with our wild woman self, our archetypal self, and our inner world is connecting with God, with our higher selves. And it's a connection that has been lost and pushed away over time. But it's essential, I realize now. It's essential to our creativity, to be a creator is to connect with the original creator. One thing about this land is certain. It is old, older than the oceans. It has no age. It is ageless. The wild woman archetype funds this layer, emanating from the instinctual psyche. Although she can take on many guises in our dreams and creative experiences, she is not from the layer of the mother, the maiden, the medial woman, and she is not the inner child. She is not the queen, the Amazon, the lover, the seer. She is just what she is. Call her La Kesab, the one who knows. Call her wild woman. Call her La Loba. Call her by her high names or by her low names. Call her by her newer names or her ancient ones. She remains just what she is. Wild woman as an archetype is an inimitable and ineffable force which carries a bounty of ideas, images, and particularities for humankind. Archetype exists everywhere, and yet is not seeable in the usual sense. What can be seen of it in the dark cannot necessarily be seen in daylight. We find lingering evidence of archetype in the images and symbols found in stories, literature, poetry, painting, and religion. It would appear that its glow, its voice, and its fragrance are meant to cause us to be raised up from contemplating the shit on our tails to occasionally traveling in the company of the stars. I love that. It's so real. We're all so stuck in the shit of our lives, or the shit on our tails. And we get caught up in the mundanity of daily life that we forget to raise ourselves up or to look up and contemplate the stars, contemplate our essence, connect, meditate, do what it takes to reconnect with our inner selves, our inner goddess. At Laloba's place, the physical body is, as poet Tony Moffett writes, a luminous animal. And the body's immune system seems, via anecdotal reports, to be strengthened or weakened by conscious thought. That's so true, and we're discovering more and more of that by science these days. You read Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and how meditation is directly connected to our health, to our immune system, and how by changing our thoughts, we can create our reality. So by changing our thoughts about our dis-ease, our illness, we can create health. And it's exactly what she's talking about, just in other words. At Laloba's place, the spirits manifest as personages. The mythological voice of the deep psyche speaks as poet and oracle. Things of psychic value, once dead, can be revived. Also, the basic material of all stories existent in the world ever began with someone's experience here in this inexplicable psychic land, and someone's attempt to relate what occurred to them here. And here being the world between worlds, the other side, the astral plane, wherever it is where we go to connect with our higher selves, with the mist beings, with the angels, our guides, to connect with Source. We come back and we try to explain what is inexplicable. There are various names for this locus betwixt the worlds. Jung called it variously the collective unconscious, the objective psyche, and the psychoid unconscious, referring to a more ineffable layer of the former. He thought of the latter, the psychoid unconscious, as a place where the biological and psychological worlds share headwaters, where biology and psychology might mingle with and influence one another. Throughout human memory, this place, call it Nod, call it the home of the mist beings, the crack between the worlds, is the place where visitations, miracles, imaginations, inspirations, and healings of all natures occur. Though this site transmits great psychic wealth, it must be approached with preparation, for one may be tempted to joyously drown in the rapture of one's time there. Consensual reality may seem less exciting by comparison. In this sense, these deeper layers of psyche can become a rapture trap from which people return unsteady, with wobbly ideas and airy presentments. That is not how it is meant to be. You hear of people having a Kundalini rising experience, awakening the Kundalini and getting overwhelmed by it. And it's easy to happen. I know there's an aspect of me that desires deeply to contact and experience this other side, this other world. And yet it's important to remember we are human beings having a spiritual experience. We're here to be on earth. And it is important to have that connection as a guiding light and a guiding force in our lives, but not to be wholly enraptured and lose our footing, lose our way. How one is meant to return is wholly washed or dipped in a revivifying and informing water, something which impresses upon our flesh the odor of the sacred. Each woman has potential access to Rio Abajo Rio, this river beneath the river. She arrives there through deep meditation, dance, writing, painting, prayer making, singing, drumming, active imagination, or any activity which requires an intense altered consciousness. A woman arrives in this world between worlds through yearning and by seeking something she can see just out of the corner of her eye. She arrives there by deeply creative acts, through intentional solitude, and by practice of any of the arts. And even with these well-crafted practices, much of what occurs in this ineffable world remains forever mysterious to us, for it breaks physical laws and rational laws as we know them. I know it's often hard for us to comprehend this other world and for us to put words to it. It's deliberately meant that way. I've been watching so many interesting things on YouTube, and one channel, if you haven't come across it, is Alex Ferrari's channel, Next Level Soul podcast. And he interviews some amazing, interesting people, channels, mystics, mediums, psychics, all matter. And they bring across information from the Pleiadians, the Akashic record keepers, the angel beings, so many. Mr. Pebbles, I think that was his name. But they bring across so much interesting information for us to use and to know, and yet it is so difficult for us to wrap our heads around. And a lot of the information that comes through, a lot of the same messages, is that we come here and we deliberately forget everything about who we are, these God particles. We are just as magnificent as we hold these angelic beings to be, yet we forget who we are deliberately. and we come down to a denser plane, the earth plane, the earth field, the earth school, to remember and to learn who we are and to grow. And so it's deliberately harder, denser for us to comprehend. And part of our mission here is to raise our vibration, to become lighter beings, wiser beings, and to let go of the denser, darker energies that hold us down. And that's my impression of what I've been watching and reading over the years. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, which I am, please go check out Alex Ferrari's channel. It's fascinating. You'll find some very cool interviews. So back to La Loba. The care with which this psychic state must be entered is recorded in a small but powerful story of 4 rabbis who yearned to see the most sacred wheel of Ezekiel. The 4 Rabbinim. One night, 4 Rabbinim were visited by an angel who awakened them and carried them to the 7th vault of the 7th heaven. There they beheld the sacred wheel of Ezekiel. Somewhere in the descent from paradise to earth, one rabbi, having seen such splendor, lost his mind and wandered frothing and foaming until the end of his days. The second rabbi was extremely cynical. "Oh, I just dreamed Ezekiel's wheel. That was all. Nothing really happened." The third rabbi carried on and on about what he had seen, for he was totally obsessed. He lectured and would not stop with how it was all constructed and what it all meant. And in this way he went astray and betrayed his faith. The fourth rabbi, who was a poet, took a paper in hand and a reed and sat near the window, writing song after song, praising the evening dove, his daughter in her cradle, and all the stars in the sky. And he lived his life better than before. Such a brilliant story. It really does highlight all the different people that walk this earth and all the different approaches to encountering the wheel of Ezekiel. And I'm sure we can relate to maybe all of them or just one of them. But it's a great reminder not to get carried away with this otherworldly aspect that exists in a very real world here, this world that we experience daily as humans, and to remember why we are here, and to celebrate and be joyful and create. Who saw what in the 7th vault of the 7th heaven? We do not know. But we do know that contact with the world wherein the essences reside causes us to know something beyond the usual hearing of humans, and fills us with a feeling of expansion and grandeur as well. When we touch the authentic fundament of the one who knows, the omniscient, it causes us to react and act from our deepest integral nature. The story recommends that the optimal attitude for experiencing the deep unconscious is one of neither too much fascination nor too little, one of not too much awe, but neither too much cynicism. Bravery, yes, but not recklessness. Jung cautions in his magnificent essay, The Transcendent Function, that some persons, in their pursuit of the self, over-aestheticize the God or self-experience. Some will undervalue it, some will overvalue it, and some who are not ready for it will be injured by it. But still others will find their way to what Jung called the moral obligation, to live out and to express what one has learned in the descent or ascent to the wild self. It reminds me too that we're each on our own path, and it's important to let each person walk their own path. It's easy to judge another of where they are in their path or their actions, and to criticize people around us and, gosh, what are they doing? What do they know? and to stop there and allow people the journey, their journey. It's a personal one for all of us. And however long it takes us to get to wherever it is we're going, let that person walk and let yourself walk. Focus on your path, on your journey. Try not to change other people. I read a great quote, judgment separates us from wholeness. And it's so succinct, isn't it? Judgment separates us from wholeness. This moral obligation he speaks of means to live what we perceive, be it found in the psychic Elysian fields, the isles of the dead, the bone deserts of the psyche, the face of the mountain, the rock of the sea, the lush underworld, any place where La Kesab breathes upon us, changing us. Our work is to show we have been breathed upon, to show it, give it out, sing it out, to live out in the topside world what we have received through our sudden knowings, from body, from dreams and journeys of all sorts. La Loba parallels world myths in which the dead are brought back to life. In Egyptian mythos, Isis accomplishes this service for her dead brother Osiris, who is dismembered by his evil brother Set every night. Isis works from dusk to dawn each night to piece her brother back together again before morning, else the sun will not rise. The Christ raised Lazarus, who had been dead so long he stinketh. Demeter calls forth her pale daughter, Persephone, from the land of the dead once a year, and La Loba sings over the bones. This is our meditation practice as women, calling back the dead and dismembered aspects of ourselves, calling back the dead and dismembered aspects of life itself. The one who recreates from that which has died is always a double-sided archetype. The creation mother is always also the death mother, and vice versa. Because of this dual nature, or double tasking, the great work before us is to learn to understand what around and about us and what within us must live and what must die. Our work is to apprehend the timing of both, to allow what must die to die and what must live to live. For woman, El Rio Abajo Rio, the river beneath the river world, the bone woman home place, contains direct knowing about seedlings, rootstock, the seed corn of the world. In Mexico, women are said to carry la luz de la vida, the light of life. This light is located not in a woman's heart, not behind her eyes, but in los ovarios, in her ovaries, where all the seed stock is laid down before she is even born. For men, exploring the deeper issues of fertility and the nature of seed, the image is the furry bag, los cojones, the scrotum. This is the knowing to be gained in being close to wild woman. When La Loba sings, she sings from the knowing of los ovarios, a knowing from deep within the body, deep within the mind, deep within the soul. The symbols of seed and bone are very similar. If one has the rootstock, the basis, the original part, if one has the seed corn, any havoc can be repaired, devastations can be resown, fields can be rested, hard seed can be soaked to soften it, to help it break open and thrive. To have the seed means to have the key to life. To be with the cycles of the seed means to dance with life, dance with death, dance into life again. This embodies the life and death mother in her most ancient and principled form. Because she turns in these constant cycles, I call her the life, death, life mother. If something is lost, It is she to whom one must appeal, speak with, and listen to. Her psychic advice is sometimes harsh or difficult to put into practice, but always transformative and restorative. So when something is lost, we must go to the old woman who always lives in the out-of-the-way pelvis. She lives out there, half in and half out of the creative fire. This is the perfect place for women to live, right next to the fertile huevos, their eggs, their female seeds. There, the tiniest ideas and the largest ones are waiting for our minds and actions to make them manifest. Imagine the old woman as the quintessential 2 million-year-old woman. She is the original wild woman who lives beneath and yet on the top side of the earth. She lives in and through us, and we are surrounded by her. The deserts, the woodlands, and the earth under our houses are 2 million years old, and then some. She is the connection between the two worlds. She is Mother Nature. She is the angelic realm. She is the Akashic records. She is our essence, our life force. I'm always taken by how deeply women like to dig in the earth. They plant bulbs for the spring. They poke blackened fingers into mucky soil, transplanting sharp-smelling tomato plants. I think they are digging down to the 2 million-year-old woman. They are looking for her toes and her paws. They want her for a present to themselves, for with her they feel of a peace and at peace. Without her, they feel restless. Many women I've worked with over the years began their first session with some variation of, well, I don't feel bad, but I don't feel good either. I think that condition is not a great mystery. We know it comes from not enough muck. The cure? La loba. Find the 2 million-old woman. She is caretaker of the dead and dying of woman things. She is the road between the living and the dead. She sings the creation hymns over the bones. The old woman, wild woman, she is the mythical voice who knows the past and our ancient history and keeps it recorded for us in stories. Sometimes we dream her as a disembodied but beautiful voice. As the hag maiden, she shows us what it means to be, not withered, but wizened. Babies are born wizened, with instinct. They know in their bones what is right and what to do about it. It is innate. If a woman holds on to this gift of being old while she is young, and young while she is old, she will always know what comes next. If she has lost it, she can yet reclaim it with some purposeful psychic work. I love the way Clarissa uses metaphors and stories and this language to connect us in a way that is familiar, but using language that is so fresh and new to our ears. La Loba, the old one in the desert, is a collector of bones. In archetypal symbology, bones represent the indestructible force. They do not lend themselves to easy reduction. They are by their structure hard to burn, nearly impossible to pulverize. In myth and story, they represent the indestructible soul spirit. We know the soul spirit can be injured, even maimed, but it is very nearly impossible to kill. You can dent the soul and bend it. You can hurt it and scar it. You can leave the marks of illness upon it and the scorch marks of fear, but it does not die. For it is protected by Loloba in the underworld. She is both the finder and the incubator of the bones. The wolf bones in this story represent the indestructible aspect of the wild self, the instinctual nature, the creatura dedicated to freedom and the unspoiled, that which will never accept the rigors and requirements of a dead or over-civilizing culture. The metaphors in this story typify the entire process for bringing a woman to her full instinctual wildish senses. Within us is the old one who collects bones. Within us there are the soul bones of this wild self. Within us is the potential to be fleshed out again as the creature we once were. Within us are the bones to change ourselves and our world. Within us is the breath and our truths and our longings. Together they are the song, the creation hymn we have been yearning to sing. This does not mean we should walk about with our hair hanging in our eyes or with black ringed claws for fingernails. Yes, we remain human, but also within the human woman is the animal instinctual self. This is not some romantic cartoon character. It has real teeth, true snarl, huge generosity, unequaled hearing, sharp claws, generous and furry breasts. This self must have freedom to move, to speak, to be angry, and to create. This self is durable, resilient, and possesses high intuition. It is a self which is knowledgeable in the spiritual dealings of death and birth. We're so conditioned to be civilized and ladylike and nice and not to express anger or any very volatile emotion and to apologize for being ourselves. And this is yet another example encouraging us to awaken that true wildish nature inside that is not ashamed to express all of ourselves. Today, the old one inside you is collecting bones. What is she remaking? She is the soul self, the builder of the soul home. Even in the best of worlds, the soul needs refurbishing from time to time. Just like the adobes here in the southwest, a little peels, a little falls down, a little washes away. There is always an old, round woman with bedroom slipper feet who is patting mud slurry on the adobe walls. She mixes straw and water and earth and pats it back on the walls, making them fine again. Without her, the house will lose its shape. Without her, it will wash down into a lump after a hard rain. She is the keeper of the soul. Without her, we lose our shape. Without an open supply line to her, humans are said to be soulless or damned souls. She gives shape to the soul house and makes more house by hand. She is the one in the old apron. She is the one whose dress is longer in the front than in the back. She is the one who pat-a-pat-pats. She is the soul maker, the wolf raiser, the keeper of things wild. So I say to you with affection, imagistically, be you a black wolf, a northern grey, a southern red, or an arctic white, you are the quintessential instinctual creatura. Although some might really prefer you behave yourself and not climb all over the furniture in joy, or all over people in welcome, do it anyway. Some will draw back from you in fear or disgust. Your lover will cherish this new aspect of you if he or she be the right lover for you. Some people will not like it if you take a sniff at everything to see what it is. And for heaven's sake, no lying on your back with your feet up in the air. Bad girl, bad wolf, bad dog. Right? Wrong. Go ahead. Enjoy yourself. People do meditation to find psychic alignment. That's why people do psychotherapy and analysis. That's why people analyze their dreams and make art. That is why some contemplate tarot cards, cast I Ching, dance, drum, make theatre, pry out the poem, and fire up their prayers. That's why we do all the things we do. It is the work of gathering all the bones together. Then we must sit at the fire and think about which song we will use to sing over the bones, which creation hymn, which recreation hymn, and the truths we tell will make the song. There's a great quote from Shakespeare that I actually have tattooed on my arm. To thine own self be true. And it's tattooed on my arm because I needed it as a reminder to be true to myself always and not falter and keep on that path, even if we fall off, which we do many times. Keep coming back to it. To thine own self be true. Be true to yourself. These are some good questions to ask till one decides on the song, one's true song. What has happened to my soul voice? What are the buried bones of my life? In what condition is my relationship to the instinctual self? When was the last time I ran free? How do I make life come alive again? Where has La Loba gone to? Those are very good questions, something we all need to ask ourselves and to get really dirty, get to the bottom of it, find out. And in the finding out, we find out who we are, what we're made of. And from there, we can start to recreate. The old woman sings over the bones, and as she sings, the bones flesh out. We too become as we pour soul over the bones we have found, as we pour our yearning and our heartbreaks over the bones of what we used to be when we were young, of what we used to know in the centuries past, and over the quickening we sense in the future. We stand on all fours, foursquare. As we pour soul, we are revivified. We are no longer a thin solution, a dissolving, frail thing. No, we are in the becoming stage of transformation. Like the dry bones, we so often start out in a desert. We feel disenfranchised, alienated, not connected to even a cactus clump. The ancients called the desert the place of divine revelation. But for woman, there is much more to it than that. A desert is a place where life is very condensed. The roots of living things hold on to that last tear of water, and the flower hoards its moisture by only appearing in early morning and late afternoon. Life in the desert is small, but brilliant, and most of what occurs goes on underground. This is like the lives of many women. The desert is not lush like a forest or a jungle. It is very intense and mysterious in its life forms. Many of us have lived desert lives, very small on the surface and enormous under the ground. La Loba shows us the precious things that can come from that sort of psychic distribution. I know that's true of many women, that we live small on the surface and we live out our days being small with a huge underground wealth of water, of life, of creation. And I wish more of us would connect and share that underground well, because it's common for all of us. It's something we can use as a connector to each other, because we all understand what it is to live like that. A woman's psyche may have found its way to the desert out of resonance, or because of past cruelties, or because she was not allowed a larger life above ground. So often a woman feels then that she lives in an empty place where there is maybe just one cactus with one brilliant red flower on it. And then in every direction, 500 miles of nothing. But for the woman who will go 501 miles, there is something more. A small, brave house. An old one. She has been waiting for you. Some women don't want to be in the psychic desert. They hate the frailty, the spareness of it. They keep trying to crank a rusty jalopy and bump their way down the road to a fantasized, shining city of the psyche. But they are disappointed, for the lush and the wild is not there. It is in the spirit world, that world between worlds, Rio abajo Rio, that river beneath the river. That is where it lies. Don't be a fool. Go back and stand under that one red flower and walk straight ahead for that last hard mile. Go up and knock on the old weathered door. Climb up to the cave. Crawl through the window of a dream. Sift the desert and see what you find. It is the only work we have to do. You wish psychoanalytic advice? Go gather bones. And that is the first chapter we have completed. Thank you for sticking with me as we go through it, because it is quite long and intense, and they're going to get longer and more intense. But what a chapter. Wow. And I've made a few notes because there is so much to take in. And I hope I did it justice reading it. And I hope you started to ponder, what is it? What are the bones? And what is your song? And what is your essence? To me, what are the bones? The bones are the life force, our essence, what we are made of, truly, and what we have forgotten, and something we need to unearth and piece back together, and to recreate ourselves anew, to create. How will you gather the bones? That is a good question. So, for me, what will I do to gather the bones? For me, it's singing, dancing, drumming, connecting with like-minded women, painting, big one. I love painting. It's my love, my one true love. But any form of creativity, drawing, sketching. I hope you enjoyed what I was drawing while I read. It's a process for me too, getting back to the things I love to do. Tarot, I'm just getting to understand tarot more and understand the archetypes and their representations and how their meanings in our lives. Meditation, this is what she talks about, is so essential to our creativity, to reconnecting with ourselves, is to actually connect with our higher self, with our guides. They're there waiting to guide us, to help us along this journey we call life on this difficult earth plane. But it's an exciting journey and one to embrace, and not something we always know what to do with or how to approach. We get lost along the way, and we get stuck in the material world. You just have to look on social media to see how lost people are in the material world, and distracted by celebrity and material things and stuff we think we need in our lives, and it's all nonsense, really. Walk your path, find what's true to you, find what you love and express it, bring it out in creation. This is what we're doing here, and it's such an essential part of our journey while we're here on earth. And I'm so grateful to Clarissa for bringing it out through story. It's such an unusual way to look at your life, through story, through metaphors, through myths. It's a fantastic way. I love it. So I hope you enjoy it. So yeah, go away, think about what we've just done, think about what are the things you need to bring back into your life, or the things you need to bring into your life to start creating, to start excavating those bones and building again. And what is the song? What is your song to sing over those bones? For me, it's freedom. That's a big one, to be free, to be independent, to breathe, to connect to earth, to nature. That's such an important part for me, part of my song. And I'm just rediscovering that, and discovering new ways in which to bring it back to life. So yeah, that's about it from me on this journey, on this chapter 1. I'll be back with chapter 2. But please leave a comment. I know at this stage I'm talking to myself because it's like 1 or 2 views, but it's okay. I'm actually quite all right with that. But I hope you do connect with me. I'd love to hear more about your journey. Till the next time, I will see you again soon. Take care.